All right.
Do not bring it up.
You good?
I'm great. How are you? My physical results say that I'm great.
You just said, don't bring it up. You have, in no particular order, over the last 15 minutes, discussed the results of your colon test with me, the barista at Bluestone Coffee, and Adrian, our producer. You have you brought it up unprompted, and then before this show starts, moments ago, you say don't bring it up, and you just sat there and brought it up.
I'm tearing up, dude. No, the only reason I brought it up because it's concerning for guys our age. Come on, let's redo this. We can't.
No, leave it all in. Leave it all in. Leave it all in. All right,
come on, let's talk.
All right, believe me, I don't want to talk about your future colonoscopy.
All right, man, come on. I know we're both full of it. Let's go.
Okay. Oh, yeah, there's one way to put it. All right, Chris Mannix, the former junior middleweight champion, Sergio Mora, back in Los Angeles, back in studio. Both headed to Atlantic City next week. Your first trip to Atlantic City, Sergio. I can't believe that. All the years you've spent as a fighter, all your years in boxing, you have never been to Atlantic City?
Yeah, for good reason. There's nothing to go out there for. I mean...
You're a boxer.
Yeah, but no good boxing takes place over there. Hopefully now, with Boots Ennis, is going to be different. Like the heyday was past that. It was back in the Trump days in the 80s and 90s where Atlantic City was popping.
Not. Like Andre Ward fought Carl Froch down there. Bernard Hopkins fought down there a bunch of times. Like it wasn't that long ago that Atlantic City was a hot spot for boxing.
It seems ancient, like the days of the Taj Mahal and all those, like the Rounders days, you know, with the movie The Rounders.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, they filmed it there. So it seems a lot like a long time ago, 20, 25 plus years at least.
Well, it still is housing boxing, and it will be the home of Boots Ennis and Montestaniano. So we're going to get into that next week. Big announcement coming for the show in the next couple of days. Huge announcement for us. Another one, yes.
Didn't we just have a big announcement?
We were hired
2 weeks ago.
And we were fired by the ring.
No, you got fired. But
I got fired, yes.
Grand opening, grand closing. Gotcha.
Yes, but we have a big announcement coming next week that will pertain to the show, distribution of the show, platforms the show may wind up on. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a very big week next week. I want to start, though, Sergio, talking about something that's happening in the future, because it was an interesting announcement from PBC this past weekend. Two of the biggest names at super middleweight, Caleb Plant and Jermall Charlo, will return on May 31st in separate fights. Plant will fight Jose Resendez. Charlo, who has not fought since November of 2023 and only once since 2021, will face Thomas LaMotta. If both win, there are reportedly plans to match Plant and Charlo against each other in the fall. So we've been talking about Plant and Charlo for the last couple of years. Are you down to see that fight in 2025?
No, I am not. Because if you break down the numbers, you break down everything, the inactivity of Charlo, the outside issues that Charlo's had, it's concerning. It really is. Charlo started his career in the high 140s. He's a natural 154 pounder. Yes, he did move up.
He's a big dude, though. He was a huge middleweight.
I don't know about huge. He was a huge 154
He's big
pounder.
Charlo. Like he's...
Mall.
Yeah.
M-A-L-L. Yeah, I know the difference.
I know, but I'm saying he's the big one. Like he's the one that's the natural big.
Well, I sized them up a long time ago. And look, they were mean. That's the thing about the Charlo brothers. They're mean. They're fierce. They're power punchers. They're knocking out guys. I mean, they were championship twins. But then they made money. And then their hunger started, kind of diverting. It started going in a different direction. And it's not there. The thing about Jermall Charlo, that he's only fought, 3 times in 5 years now it's going? That inactivity is unheard of for a championship level fighter that's still undefeated technically. So I don't like this fight for many reasons. Caleb Plant is a natural 168 pounder. He's going to be fighting a guy that has issues inside and outside the ring, a guy that's wasn't a legitimate 160 pounder until he grew into it. Now he's fighting at 168. I don't like this fight at all, man. And I just think Caleb Plant's been way too motivated in his fights. He's been in tough fights. He's been against the absolute best in David Benavidez. He's got knockout of the year type fights with Durrell, and that tough fight that he just had with Macumbi. So the momentum, the confidence, everything's there for Caleb Plant. You could say the complete opposite with Jermall Charlo. I don't like this fight.
I love this fight.
Dude, I love Berlanga versus Plant. What's that?
We'll get to that. But in the PBC universe, this is the biggest fight you can make at 168. Plant, former champion, has an interim title right now. Charlo, former middleweight champion, and undefeated still, remarkably, still undefeated. So that is the carrot for Caleb Plant to fight Jermall Charlo. We know the history of these two guys, too. Caleb Plant smacked Jermall Charlo in the face a couple of years ago. Like, smacked him in the face.
Remind me to talk about, can I talk about that?
Go ahead.
All right, look, this is when I knew he didn't have it anymore.
Because you let him slap him in the face?
And he didn't react.
Yeah.
He just stood still. He was shocked. Fighters don't react like that. The first instinct of any boxer, any MMA fighter, anyone with any kind of balls, the first instinct is to attack whoever smacked you. This dude stood docile like a traumatized pet when he got hit. That means the fighting spirit's gone, man. He got smacked hard, and he just stood still, didn't react. He didn't even say anything. That's when I knew, oh, man, like this dude's going through something personally. He's having emotional struggles on his own issues, and it's well documented. Now he's had his issues,
alcohol, things like that. He has had issues that have kept him out of the ring for the last couple of years.
Personal life as well, and all that other stuff. Look, man, we all have our issues, but whenever you get smacked by a man, you've seen that Dave Chappelle episode where you get smacked. It's worse than a punch. You don't smack a man. You don't smack a man. So I think that was a disrespectful thing by Plant, and the way that Charlo reacted, I could tell that the fight's gone.
I wouldn't want to see this fight happen in May, so I'm glad it's not happening right away. I think we'll get a bit of a glimpse at what Jermall Charlo has left in this fight with Cornflake LaMotta. Like, LaMotta, he's got a bunch of wins in a row, but he's had some bad losses. He was knocked out in the first round by Erislandy Lara a few years ago. This should be the kind of fight that Jermall Charlo wins fairly easily. If he does that, I think it's going to change a lot of opinions about whether you want to see Plant against Charlo. Because if you can get Charlo to get a little bit of momentum back, not a lot, just a little bit of momentum back, you think about what the press tour would be like for that fight. Both these guys hate each other. Like, there's just so much bad blood. That would be such a buildup for a fall fight between these two top guys at 168, with a winner, assuming Canelo was gone at that point or away from, the title picture, the winner will have a pretty big stake to say that, I'm the best at 168 pounds. And then you can go on to a fight against Edgar Berlanga. Look, I acknowledge, I have no idea what Jermall Charlo has left. I mean, we talked about the inactivity, 34 years old. Even the last time out, he fought Jose Benavidez, who was basically a blown-up 147. He fought him above 160. Missed weight for that fight. Didn't look great against Benavidez. That's the kind of fight that in his prime, good-to-go Jermall Charlo, which you trace back to, like, the Derevinchenko win was probably the best win. Probably the best win on his resume, if I'm missing something.
Austin Trout, but that was way
that
down
was a
to
long time ago.
154.
At 60, though, it was the Derevinchenko.
Jose Benavidez and Derevinchenko, yes.
Well, Jose Benavidez was not a good win. Like, that's just a win, right? That was a win we expected Jermall Charlo because of the size difference to get a stoppage.
Julian Williams, J-Rock Williams.
Yeah, all right. Well, he's around. It's been 5-6 years since he's had those kinds of wins. What's left in the tank for him? Like, that's the big question. Like, your point is well taken. Like, he's gone through a lot. He let Caleb Plant smack him. He hasn't been able to get back into the ring, even in low-level fights. If he comes back, though, in this fight and blows the doors off LaMotta, you're going to want to see him and Caleb Plant. You are, because Caleb Plant is also in a fight that he should win pretty easily. Resendez is not very good. Like, this is not a fight that Caleb Plant should have any problems with. And Caleb Plant, even though you're right, he has momentum, Caleb's had some wear over the last couple of years. I mean, he's been in some tough fights. I mean, he was in with Canelo, got stopped, had a war with David Benavidez. He beat Trevor McCumbee, got him, knocked him out, but not before McCumbee put him down and, roughed him up a little bit at times. I think there's a lot to like about that fight at 168.
Yeah, if you sell it that way, and which is the main thing a promoter does. He needs to sell that. He needs to sell that undefeated record, that former champion level, a guy moving up in weight, trying to conquer a third weight division. Yeah, that's how you sell it. But whenever you break it down, then you can't convince real boxing fans. You can't convince real fighters, real champions. You won't convince me on that one. Charlo doesn't have that anymore.
Then talk to me on June 1st.
He doesn't have the edge anymore.
But if he shows it on May 31st, you're going to believe on June 1st. Like, if he stops this guy, if he stops LaMotta in 2 rounds, 3 rounds.
Again, because LaMotta's been stopped before.
It's
not like this guy has a great record against.
I'm not arguing that. Both these guys are in with inferior opponents. These should be astronomical odds in favor of the A side. But if he does the job done and stops LaMotta, I'm telling you, you're going to be sitting there going, let's make that Caleb Plant fight happen. You mentioned Edgar Berlanga. Berlanga's not going there. Berlanga we both like Edgar. He talks a great game, but there is no chance on God's earth that Keith Conley lets Edgar Berlanga into the ring with Caleb Plant before we know what Jaime Munguia is going to do next.
All right, well, then forget Berlanga and Plant. Plant should be facing Christian and Billy. He should be facing
There's no
Diego
money
Pacheco.
in that. There's no
he
money
should be
in
facing
that.
real names, real threats.
Jermall Charlo is a name.
Charlo's a name. So that I'll give you. Yeah, Charlo's a name.
Bigger name than Mbili, bigger name than Pacheco. Look, I don't think Caleb Plant ducks any of these fights, but Caleb Plant knows that nobody knows who Christian Mbili is. People are starting to get to know who Diego Pacheco is. They know Berlanga, there's bad blood there. They know Charlo, there's bad blood there. I don't fault him at all for targeting one of those two guys. And if I'm Caleb Plant, like, I know there is a pile of money. Like, I think Charlo Plant, I don't want to see it on pay-per-view, but you could argue it does you can find out people are gonna kill me for saying that. It's the kind of thing that you could probably generate enough money on pay-per-view to make it worth your while. Like, I'd want to see it on Amazon Prime Video. Don't get me wrong, DAZN, wherever. But it's probably it's a big enough fight that I think it would attract some attention on pay-per-view.
If that fight is pay-per-view, then it doesn't do well. It shouldn't be a pay-per-view. Even if they stack the undercard, it won't do well. But I got to give it to Caleb Plant. I mean, ever since winning the title from Uzcategui, they've moved them the right way, where they put good fights in front of him. They got him that big $10 million paycheck against Canelo, and then he got that knockout of the year type fight with Anthony Jarrell, and then he gives you great fights. A Benavidez fight, I mean, it was a one-sided fight, but Plant still tried to win, and he won some rounds. I won't knock him for that. And then he comes back with Trevor McCumbee. So whatever you got to say about Caleb Plant, the dude's a dog. The dude's a fighter, and he's always going to
He's a real one too, man. Like, I saw him last weekend, I guess it is now, in Vegas. He went to the Michaela Mayer, Sandy Ryan fight, just walking around by himself, was there with his wife, Jordan. Their kid was with them as well. He just kind of rolls solo. He's not the kind of guy that rolls with, 2 or 3 people.
I called one of his fights early in the PBC days, and this is before he was known. He was like early 10-0, 11-0. I forgot what he was. I pulled him aside and I said, "Hey, man, you got some hands on you." They call them sweet hands. I go, "You're gonna have a bright future in this." I basically I told him how good he was, how great he was gonna be. But even back then, he wasn't a likable guy. He's like one of these dudes that just sticks to himself. Real smart.
He is likable though. He is like, he's always. I mean, I don't know him like that, but I've met him half a dozen or more times over the last 4 or 5 years. He's a pretty friendly guy if you talk to him. Like, he's not gregarious out there, but he's a pretty friendly guy.
Well, look, you may think he has a personality because you have none. So look, Caleb Plant is one of those guys, but he can fight his ass off. All right, so it doesn't matter if he's dry and he's not charismatic. The dude can fight. He's respected by the boxing community, and he has balls. That's all you need to be a marketable fighter. And if he comes back and fights a Charlo and then gets another big fight against Berlanga.
Look, you can do Berlanga in 2026. Like, Berlanga's trying to get Jaime Munguia. Like, look, it's the worst kept secret in boxing that Canelo Crawford is going to be a September showdown on Netflix at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, probably promoted by TKO. And the co-main event slot is going to be one of the most sought after slots in boxing. It is the Taylor Serrano of the Tyson Paul event. Right. Like, it's a big deal. And I think Edgar Berlanga wants that slot against Jaime Munguia. Jaime Munguia is training with Eddie Reynoso. He's got a great chance of landing that slot, and Edgar Berlanga wants to be there to face him. It makes sense. It's a big Mexican-Puerto Rican type of fight. And for Edgar Berlanga, I think his team believes it's a much more winnable fight than a Caleb Plant fight would be, that a Pacheco fight certainly would be. So that's what Edgar Berlanga is going to do. All right, let's talk about Tim Tszyu. Tszyu will make his return to the ring this weekend when he takes on Joyce-Spencer in a non-title fight. Tszyu, as we know, had a disastrous 2024, losing his title to Sebastian Fundora before getting knocked out by Bakram Murtalayev. He is back home looking to get that momentum back. What do you think? Do you think Tszyu will be a player again at 154 pounds?
Man, that's a tough one because I really, really am a big fan of Tim Tszyu and his father. I was a huge fan of Costa Tszyu. My trainer always used to say, this guy's special, Costa Tszyu, even before he lost his fights against Vince Phillips, and then, of course, when he got stopped by Ricky Hatton. But he used to tell me, this guy beat Vernon Forrest in the amateurs. This guy will beat Oscar De La Hoya. He's a big fan of Costa Tszyu. And his son took in his footsteps. They fight exactly the same way. But because of that, I don't think he has another run at the championship level, Mannix. I really don't, because his father, once he lost, yes, he went on a run, about a dozen wins after that, and then he came up short again. But once you lose that chip on your shoulder, that edge, that fierceness, and you become vulnerable, you don't get that back again. Tszyu lost it with that Sebastian Fundora, but that was a bloody fight that was due because of a cut in the elbow. Okay, so you could forget that. But then comes the Mursalaya fight. That was a beatdown, and that wasn't even that was just a 3-round destruction.
Whipping.
Yeah, whipping. You don't come back from that. So yes, he can come back and win the Joyce-Spencers of the world, good fighters with good records. He can come back and maybe get to a title shot, but to become champion again in his 30s, I'm going to say no.
I'm a little more optimistic about Tszyu's chances to bounce back because I have to look at each of those losses individually. The Fundora loss to me was a systematic failure by his team to protect him.
# bad matchmaking.
The Fundora fight I agree with. His team never should have allowed a 6'6" southpaw to take the place of a 5'7" orthodox fighter in Keith Thurman on short notice. That is insane. Like, I get wanting to be tough, fight anywhere, anytime, but when you reach a certain level where the money is so legit, you cannot get in the ring with something like that. Then he has the bad luck in the second round of taking that Fundora elbow, and his team doesn't stop the fight.
Yeah.
His team sees how big that gash is on his forehead and doesn't stop the fight. That is a systematic failure by Team Tszyu to protect their fighter. Now, the Mursalaya fight, that was a failure of Tim Tszyu's corner at developing him and having a game plan. Like, he made Mursalaya that night look like the best 154-pounder that we've seen in years. I don't think Mursalaya is that good. I think he's okay, but I don't think he's this, this boogeyman that should be avoided at 154. Tim Tszyu just kind of stood there and took straight shots from him. And if you take straight shots from a guy that can punch at 54, exactly what happened is going to happen. So I think my takeaway is Tim Tszyu needs to show improvements. Like, he needs to be better at keeping his head out of the line. Right? Like, his head was right on the line against Mursalaya.
But that's how his father trained him. Coach Tszyu fought that way.
His father hasn't really been around in a long time.
Well, look, that's how they fought. They're the facsimile of each other, man. They look alike. They fight alike. They have the same punch output. They have the same right hand. Father and son, they don't move their upper body. They're like centaurs. Their lower body stays still, and their upper body kind of moves a little bit, but not enough to where you're gonna dodge punches. That's the first thing I would say. But second thing is they're too tough for their own good. They always think knockout. They always think they can beat everyone up, and you want a fighter to feel that way. But once you get knocked out, once you get beat up, then that invincibility goes out the window. And then you don't want them to think that way. You want them to think defensively. Okay, I'm immortal now. Now I need to learn how to jab, step back, and counter. Now I need to change and adapt to the new type of fighter that I am. Tszyu, too proud. Tim Tszyu, way too proud. A lot of fighters that are on that level, way too proud. They don't evolve, and that's why they get stopped again.
So you don't think he can fundamentally change? Because some of the problems Tszyu has had have traced back to early fights. Remember, was it Terrell Gaucher? Did he drop him in the first round of their fight? So he's vulnerable to power punchers, like guys that can crack. And I'm willing to believe that at 30 years old, there still is another chapter for Tim Tszyu. And I actually like the path that his team is putting him on here. Like, Joyce-Spencer's got a good record, but Joyce-Spencer...
another guy doesn't move his head.
Yeah,
so I like this fight for him.
It's a perfect... speaking of matchmaking, this is a good matchmaking decision by his team. And then if he wins, they'll probably make the fight with Keith Thurman, who looked good against Brock Jarvis, but due respect to Brock Jarvis is not Tim Tszyu. That would be a fight I would favor Tim Tszyu to win. So if he can beat Joyce-Spencer, if he can beat Keith Thurman, those guys don't fight like one of the top guys at 54, but I think his confidence comes back after that. Maybe he gets his momentum back after that, because that loss to Bakram was a confidence-draining fight. That was a tough one. So if he can beat these two guys in Australia, he can come back to the U.S. in a big fight against... maybe he can do the rematch with Fundora. Like Fundora's said, I'll give him that rematch if he wants it. Maybe he can get that done.
He's going to come back. I just don't think he wins a world championship. That was the initial question. He will bounce back. Like I said, his dad did that after losing. He went on a streak. So I think Tim does the exact same thing because they're intelligent. They got the goods. They got the power. And look, man, they're fighters. They're born fighters. He's been fighting since he can crawl. So yeah, I mean, he has a natural ability. I just don't think he wins a world championship again.
All right. Also, this weekend, over in the UK, Joe Joyce will take on Filip Hrgovic in a 10-round heavyweight fight. Joyce has lost 3 of his last 4, most recently to Derek Chisora. Hrgovic has not fought since getting stopped by Danny Dubois last June. Big fight for both these guys, Sergio. Who do you like going into this one?
I like the younger man, the fresher man. I think Hrgovic is. I don't think he knocks him out, though. And I was talking to you about this coming up the elevator. Initially, I thought someone's getting knocked out, and it's going to be late. But then you told me it's a 10-round fight. I said, I don't know. Maybe things are going to change here. But I still like the younger man. I think, look, they're both stiff fighters. They're both huge guys that rely on that jab, right? I just think the lower body's better with Hrgovic. The slight movement upstairs, the upper body is better with Hrgovic. I think he has less wear and tear. So I like Hrgovic by decision in this fight.
Yeah, I like Hrgovic too. This fight is a gift for Filip Hrgovic. Like, this was initially supposed to be Joe Joyce against Dillian Whyte. Big couple of decent names over in the UK, would sell a lot of tickets. Dillian Whyte bows out several weeks ago. Filip Hrgovic steps in, and he and his team should be ecstatic for this kind of opportunity. This is the exact opportunity that you want if you're Hrgovic, a name who is on the downside of his career. I've always liked Joyce. I covered him back in 2016 in Rio at the Olympics. He won the silver medal back then. He was old for his development at that time. He was in, his 30s even then. But it looked like he had some potential. There was always this kind of Foreman-esque quality to Joe Joyce, where he was big, he was lumbering, he was heavy-handed, he had a great chin. But that chin is gone now, Sergio. He's been knocked out twice by Zheli Zhang. He was knocked down by Derek Chisora. 10 years ago, that might have been acceptable. 2025, not acceptable to get knocked down by Derek Chisora. I think Hrgovic stops him. I do. I think that, it might take Hrgovic some time to get going, but Joyce has proven to be so vulnerable in his last few fights. Even the one he won, what was it, against Cash something. I forgot the guy's name. But he didn't look great in that fight.
Even if Hrgovic, even though he got stopped, I just think he's going to be weary now. So that's why I don't think he
You think Hrgovic's going to be worried because of the Dubois stoppage?
Exactly. So, and it's similar stiff style with a big jab, big lumbering right hand. There's similar styles in front of him. So I think he's going to be a little leery, a little shell shock from that stoppage, and he's just going to be comfortable getting his groove back. So that's the reason I'm not picking him for a stoppage. But either way, I think he wins this fight, and I think he gets another big fight deservingly. But yeah, I totally agree with Joe Joyce. I thought he had a higher ceiling, man.
He might have if he had been able to get into the pro ranks before he turned 30. Like, he was an old guy.
He was a late starter, but he was an Olympic silver medalist.
I know.
And he was athletic. I don't know if you ever seen him, but this man used to move more on his toes. He used to be more of a boxer. He can do backflips. I don't know if you ever seen him do a backflip. He's 6'6".
He stopped Joseph Parker.
He was supposed to be something special. I mean, but his legs, and he had that Cuban trainer, Joe Joyce did, Salas. He had Ismael Salas in this corner. I don't know if he still has Salas in this corner, but whatever happened to his footwork was his demise, because he stopped moving. He stopped bouncing backwards. He stopped looking for the right hand in angles. He just looks like a big, strong, clumsy man coming forward behind the jab. And the footwork was out the window. So I'm curious to know who's in his corner now. And I'll be very, very disappointed if it's still Salas.
I was watching some of the press conference this week, and Hrgovic, I think he called him the fog. Did you see that? Where he's like, basically, you move like a slow fog. Describing that. It was pretty good. It was pretty good line there. Hrgovic, too, like, he's coming off that loss to Dubois, but I don't think that Hrgovic is done. I think Hrgovic probably learned something in that fight. I think Hrgovic going into that fight was a little too arrogant. Like, Hrgovic, I think he believed he was unbeatable because he'd been on such a great run up until that point. He had that goofy win over Mark DeMori in the first round. I think that Dubois loss was a humbling experience for Hrgovic. I think he's going to come back from that a lot better and become a factor in the heavyweight division once again. I think this is an absolutely perfect fight for Filip Hrgovic. And like, I guess I agree with you on the footwork of Joyce, but I think the bigger thing is like his chin just is gone now. Like he had a good chin for a lot of years. And that was what I think kept him in a lot of fights because he was able to walk through stuff. But then Zhang obliterates him twice. Chisora drops him like he's been wobbled. Like it, I don't see it with Joe Joyce anymore. I think Hrgovic, even on short-ish notice, finds a way to get the job done. I mentioned Chisora, and we talked last week about this fight that seems to be gaining momentum, with Chisora challenging Dubois for his heavyweight title. Dubois, of course, is trained by Don Charles, who has done a fantastic job. He was my trainer of the year last year, helping to revive Dubois' career. Charles is also the longtime former trainer of Derek Chisora. And when he was asked about the fight, said it was not something that he wants to see. And Don Charles, of course, is envisioning a scenario where his guy beats the crap out of Derek Chisora and puts him down and out in his 50th pro fight. So what do you think of Don Charles's comments?
Well, Don Charles is an excellent trainer, and he would know the behind the scenes and more than us. But I could tell why he doesn't want that fight, because now they want the big names. They want the Anthony Joshuas. They want the Dubois. They don't want the Chisora. Chisora's on a nice 3-fight streak, but why go backwards against a warhorse, a guy that's 41 years old?
Yeah, but
there's nothing to win.
Yeah, there is. There's money to make in that fight. Chisora is still a pretty big name in the UK, and he has won 3 fights in a row. Look, if I'm Joe Joyce, I'm not Joe Joyce. If I'm Danny Dubois, this fight I want. I am ecstatic about the possibility that this fight can be made. I can make a pile of money against a 41-year-old that probably can't beat me and probably can't even hurt me in this fight. Dubois is gonna love this. Like, Don Charles doesn't love this for emotional reasons. Don Charles has an emotional attachment to Derek Chisora, like he does with all of his fighters.
Maybe.
No, that's true.
And that's enough. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes whenever you invested in a fighter for so long, and then he's on the opposite side of you, there's an emotional attachment. I've been part of that, but it wasn't a fighter. It was a trainer that I grew up with, that he trained alongside of me, and he gave me pointers, and he was like a father figure type. And then one time late in my pro career, he's on the opposite end of me, training my opponent to beat me, and it hurt me. So I can understand where Charles is coming from. This has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with the physical harm that could potentially be done. It has to do with a personal relationship they have that they don't want ruined. So I get it, and let them do it, man. Trainers know a lot more than you and I, man. They've been around for a long time, and sometimes they know more behind the scenes than we know, and that's the reason why they're stopping certain fights. Either it's a bad style matchup, maybe it's someone that you don't want to get hurt or you don't want to see get hurt, or maybe it's a personal thing between them that no one can know.
But you don't need to be Derek Chisora's former trainer to know the condition that he's in. Kudos to him for winning 3 fights in a row. Gerald Washington, whatever. Joe Joyce, that was a good win. Otto Wallin, that was a good win.
They're all good wins. Now you got to cash out on it.
Maybe not to be the IBF mandatory for this title, but like to get another significant fight, Derek Chisora has put the work in. But he's going up against a beast. Daniel Dubois is a beast right now. He KO'd Jarrell Miller, KO'd Filip Hrgovic, KO'd Anthony Joshua. This guy can crack, and he is peaking right now in his late 20s. And you're going to put Derek Chisora at 41 years old in against that guy? I see what Don Charles is looking at. He's looking at a guy that he loved, like that he had. I think he had him from the very beginning. Like, he had him for years. As long as I knew and followed Derek Chisora, he was trained by Don Charles. He's going to be looking across the ring and watching his current pupil probably beat the bejesus out of a guy he really cares about. That's got to be hard. And look, one of the reasons, we talked about this a few weeks ago, and at the time I said, I'm okay with this fight happening because Chisora has, earned the right to be in another fight because he's been winning. But, and I stick to this part of it, the referee or Chisora's corner has got to watch that from the opening bell. Like, the second he gets into any real trouble, pull the plug. It's got to be over.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Then let it happen. Let them both get their paydays. Let Chisora get his payday, and let Dubois, just get an easy win under his belt. and no one gets hurt. Everyone, look, it all comes down. It's still a business. Everyone wants to get paid. Don Charles wants to get paid. He wants to get recognized. He already said his piece about the concern that he has. Now let him get his piece. Let him get his 10% or whatever it is. Let Dubois get his quick little win, knockout, move on to a bigger fight, and let Chisora have his goodbye fight, his c'est la vie fight, his swan
50th,
song.
50th pro fight. Says this will be his last
even if
one.
he gets knocked out, it'll be a big payday, and he had a wonderful career, and he could say, goodbye to everyone on his terms. So
I think Don
everyone
Charles
wins.
Don Charles is just worried about what the cost of that payday is going to be. Like if you get hit, 100 times by Daniel Dubois, there's a price you pay for that. I understand it's boxing. You take risks all the time, but at 41 years old, I can see where Don Charles is coming from with that one. Bud Crawford, he continues to give us things to talk about. The former undisputed welterweight champion had some interesting comments recently on a podcast with Kamaru Usman saying, quote, "I can retire right now and be in the Hall of Fame. Errol Spence can't. Everything that I've accomplished, he's still trying to accomplish." So Sergio, Bud Crawford saying that Errol Spence is not a boxing Hall of Famer. What say you?
I gotta agree with Bud Crawford because if you look at the history of boxing, in order to be in the Hall of Fame, you have to get out of your comfort zone, your division, which is one division. You could be great in one division, that's fine, but at least become undisputed. Errol Spence never became undisputed at that. He was lineal, he unified, but he's a career-long, from the Olympics, career-long 147-pounder. That doesn't really demand Hall of Fame credentials. That's one thing. Two, who's his best win? Twice beaten Sean Porter, maybe Mikey Garcia, who was a much smaller fighter coming up in weight from lightweight all the way to welterweight. Who else? Who else did he fight? Errol Spence fought some good names, but not quality names. But he's taking care of business. But I just don't think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. So Terence Crawford, on the other hand, 2-time undisputed, 4-division world champion, fighting for a 5th division, maybe becoming undisputed. He has all the rights in the world to say that. He does. He does. Not guys like you and me, but he does. That's a pound-for-pound great, has been doing it for a long time. And if he believes a guy like Errol Spence, who he's been in the ring with, was the first guy to stop him on the big stage, if he agrees with that, then I gotta say Bud's right on this one.
He's not right.
You're the same guy that told me Errol Spence belongs in the Hall of Fame, and
I'm about to say that now. Yes, Errol Spence does belong in the Hall of Fame. Yes.
You're the same guy in 2018 when we first started working at the Zone said that Donald Curry wasn't a Hall of Famer, and the very next year Donald Curry got it.
Saying that.
Yes, you did.
But
and I said he was a whatever. I told you he was, and you said no.
We're not going to go back to 2018. I agree. Errol Spence's cause would be boosted by having one title in one more division, right? He doesn't have to be the 4-division champion that Terence Crawford is, but having a belt at 154 would have been probably the thing that would silence any critic that's out there. And that's what he was kind of going for when he stepped into the ring with Fundora last year, and there was some talk about that fight ultimately happening. Look, Errol Spence is always going to be, there's always going to be a question about what if with Errol Spence. What if he didn't get into that car accident? What if he didn't have so many physical issues outside the ring that obviously took their toll on him? What if he had moved up in weight years earlier and campaigned at 154? He could have made that weight. I mean, he was squeezing himself down. He's a big welterweight. He could have moved up to 154, campaigned there, won a couple of belts, and really cemented that status. All that being said, he does have a good resume. He has a win over Kell Brook when Kell Brook was good. This was the Kell Brook that had just fought Gennady Golovkin at 160, came back down. Errol Spence went over to the UK.
Solid win. Yeah.
Solid win. He got that, and the one when Bud got him, that was a different version of Kell Brook. He beat Mikey Garcia. We talked about that.
A lightweight.
Beat Sean Porter. And Porter was still pretty damn good at that point. Porter was a title holder at that point.
Porter's a solid win, but he was twice beaten.
Okay.
Who else you got?
I mean, but he had a belt then. That was a unification fight.
Solid win.
Danny Garcia.
That's probably his best win. And in my opinion, and I've said this to you years ago, Danny Garcia belongs in the Hall of Fame.
You can't remember what you had for breakfast. How do you remember things that you said 2 years ago?
Because this is important, and breakfast wasn't. Danny Garcia has a Hall of Fame resume. If you go down his resume.
His candidacy is bolstered by the multi-divisions he won championships.
He's in 2 divisions, and he tried for a 3rd division in his last fight against Lara.
Yeah.
But that right there is a Hall of Fame resume. So if you give me
So
a
you
choice
think that
between-
Danny Garcia
yes.
has, and you know where I'm going to go with this. You think Danny Garcia has more Hall of Fame credentials than Errol Spence?
Outside of the Olympics that Errol Spence represented for the United States, because I always tack that on whenever I'm looking at the overall career of a great fighter. And Errol Spence was a great fighter. He had a great moment, but he stayed in the same lane. He didn't try to be great outside of his lane, and that's the reason.
But he didn't. So politics destroys a lot in boxing, messes everything up. Errol Spence found himself in a picture-perfect situation because his affiliation with PBC allowed him to get all the big fights at welterweight. Go down his resume, Sergio. It's not like he had periods where he was taking like 2 or 3 bad fights. He beats Kell Brook, then he fights Lamont Peterson, who was still a decent fighter at that point. Carlos Ocampo was a stay busy fight, knocked him out, I think, with the first round.
He was undefeated, Ocampo, I believe.
Ocampo was undefeated, 22-0.
That's a good look.
Okay, so he goes from Kell Brook for the first title.
Solid.
Ocampo, Mikey Garcia, high-profile fight, also undefeated.
Right.
Undefeated at that point, Mikey Garcia. Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, and Yordanis Ugas, who had a belt then, who had just beaten Manny Pacquiao.
I hear you, man. These are all solid to really good names, but none of them are great. None of those are great names.
Like this is going to come off like I'm criticizing Bud Crawford. I'm not. But who has better wins on their resume at this point? Errol Spence or Bud Crawford?
Now there's a great point.
Hey,
now there's a great point. See, I'm not a hater. All right, I'm not a one-sided guy. There's a great point, and names matter. That's what I always tell you. This is a time.
Names and talent. Like it's not just beating up. Like
names.
Like Bud has his Kell Brook moment, right? He went over to the UK and smashed Ricky Burns, right? Like that was how he won his first belt at 135. Then he was it later? I think he fought Breedis Prescott when Prescott was still a scary guy. Becomes undisputed at 140. Beats some, a couple of decent guys there. 147, we know he had a lot of problems getting a big fight. He beat Jeff Horn to win that version of the title, and then he had to kind of spin his wheels for a while, taking on these faded former names like Amir Khan and Kell Brook later on, and got Sean Porter in the last fight of Sean Porter's career. I think you can make a legitimate argument that the resumes, not the accomplishments. Terence Crawford is far more accomplished than Errol Spence. He is a 2-time undisputed champion. And oh, by the way, he beat Errol Spence bad at the very end. So you can't argue with the accomplishments, but the resume, they're at least comparable, Sergio.
And I agree. But here's what I would here was my argument against that. He wiped out divisions. Errol Spence didn't even wipe out the one division he fought in. He never became undisputed. This is a man who wiped out 135, became undisputed at 140.
He didn't wipe out 135. He
cleaned out 135. He wiped
out
everyone
at
at
135.
He cleaned out 140.
40.
Okay, he
Yes.
cleaned out 140. He was a big dog at 135. Cleaned out 140. Cleaned out 147. Went up and beat an undefeated guy in Madrimov. Won a championship at 154. Now he wants to go for the biggest dog at 168. That is how you become all-time great. Those are stats that you compare with, and I hate to even throw that name out there, but Roberto Duran, a guy that went from lightweight all the way to middleweight, a guy that was 5'7" and was fighting these monsters at middleweight, a 4-division world champion. That's what you do, man. You got to get out of your comfort zone, got to fight out of your category and weight division, and then that's when you start turning heads. Because if you stay in the same place, you become a big fish and a small pound of talent, and only one weight division. Yes, you're lineal. Yes, you become a maybe 2 or 3-time champion in that same weight class. I don't think it's enough.
He kind of burst on the scene talking about Crawford here with that Prescott win. That was when Prescott was scary. A couple of fights later, he fights Ricky Burns. That gets him the title at 135. Gamboa was a big fight back then for Terence Crawford. That was a homecoming type of fight. Postal.
Victor Postal was impressive. That's when I started paying attention.
Postal, yeah. Julius Ndongo, when Ndongo was undefeated at that time to get all the belts. Then he goes up, and Jeff Horn. And welterweight was a tough run for him. I mean, Benavidez Jr., that was a high-profile fight. Benavidez at that point was undefeated. Amir Khan, there's a name certainly on your resume, but Khan, not what he once was. Kavalauskas, very good fight.
There you
go. But Brook was at the end. Porter was at the end. Avanesian was what he was. Then he destroys Spence. Like that's the piece de la resistance for Terence Crawford right there. Like beating up Errol Spence.
Was that French?
A little bit, yeah. A little bit of French there. Anyway, look, first of all, to put a button on all this, as someone that is a Hall of Fame voter, he's going to get in the Hall of Fame because Vinny Paz is in the Hall of Fame. And if you're going to say that Errol Spence does not have the resume of Vinny Paz, then we shouldn't have this discussion.
I'm glad you brought that up, Chris Mannix. Yeah, Vinny Pazenzia's in the Hall of Fame. Sylvester Stallone's in the Hall of
You
Fame.
keep bringing up
Ray
Stallone.
Boom Boom Mancini is in the Hall of Fame.
Why are you so angry at Stallone still?
I'll tell you off the camera, but yeah, man.
You have told me off camera.
But,
I know.
But these are three guys that really don't have the resume that can carry the jockstrap of a Bud Crawford, yet they're in the Hall of Fame. So why can't Crawford and even Errol Spence? You can make a case for Errol Spence. You ask me the question, I say no.
I think when Spence winds up on the ballot, and I don't know if he's retired, he probably should be because he's been out of the ring for almost 2 years. But when he winds up on the ballot, I'm going to vote for him. Like that's kind of my position on Errol Spence. I do wish he moved up one weight class, but he had a phenomenal run at welterweight. He beat some top guys at welterweight. I'm going to vote for him for the Hall of Fame. Last one for you. Oscar De La Hoya is in full promotional mode now as we get ready for the May 2nd card that's going to be headlined by Ryan Garcia. Devin Haney, he is on the undercard against Oscar's fighter, Jose Ramirez. Oscar has been talking up Jose Ramirez, and in doing so, he said in an interview recently that he thinks that Devin Haney is a shot fighter. Now, this is, of course, in the aftermath of the loss Devin had to Ryan Garcia, which was overturned. Officially, Devin is still undefeated, but I know there are a lot of people, Sergio, not just Oscar De La Hoya, that are wondering what Devin Haney has left after that fight. So do you agree with Oscar that Devin is a shot fighter?
I think fighter to fighter, and Oscar De La Hoya was a great champion. He sees a little bit more than me as far as that. I understand what he sees, but I'm going to disagree. I don't think he's a shot fighter. Shot is a strong word. Shot is like at the end of a person's career when he's fighting in his 40s, getting knocked out by journeymen. We haven't seen Devin Haney get knocked out or beat up by journeymen. He got beat up in a fight that was competitive. Let's make that clear. It was a close fight that was competitive.
You can argue that Devin won all the rounds that he didn't get knocked down or hurt in. You can argue
But he
that.
got beat up and he got made fun
No
of,
question.
and he went through the whole social media meme stage, and then everyone was ignoring the most important factor here, the elephant in the room with Bill Haney cussed out Todd Grisham, our partner at the Zone, saying no one brings up the PEDs. I get it, but that's not our job to bring up the PEDs. The job
It's
is
kind
for
of your job, yes, a little bit.
No, my
As
job
a
is to-
broadcaster and a podcaster, now it's kind of your job.
That's your job.
Oh, okay.
My job is to break down the A, B's, and C's of what he does as a fighter. That's it. That's my job. Devin Haney still has the goods. I question his chin. That's my job, and I'm not afraid to say it. I question Devin Haney's chin. So, to like you like to say, put a button on this. Add the chin, add that embarrassing close loss, and add the fact that you have fighters like Oscar De La Hoya, who's a promoter, saying that he's a shot fighter, and if he comes back and looks bad against Ramirez, that's going to be an interesting argument to make against Devin Haney, saying that he's a shot fighter this early in his career.
I mean, isn't the truth like if you're going to be calling one of the two guys shot in that undercard fight, wouldn't Jose Ramirez be more of
100%?
like he would probably be.
but
It's
who?
not to be disrespectful to Jose. We love Jose. But he's had some tough losses as of late and did not look good in his last time out.
But who promotes Jose Ramirez?
Oscar De La Hoya.
There you go.
I am excited for the rise of Devin Haney. I'm telling you, he is going to rise again. I do not believe that Devin Haney at 25 years old is a shot fighter. I think he had a really tough day at the office last year, and he had a tough fight, and there are a lot of reasons that was a tough fight. That was the positive drug test was one part of it. Also part of it was the weight. We know that, Sergio, is a big factor in all this. Ryan Garcia was almost 3+ pounds overweight. Devin Haney made 140, came in, and was at a physical disadvantage going to that fight. Devin Haney is going to rise again. Devin Haney is going to be a player in the 147-pound division. Now, this doesn't mean that Devin's definitely going to beat Ryan Garcia in a rematch. Like, that's going to be a tough fight one way or the other. Ryan Garcia still has incredible speed and incredible power at any weight class. When that fight happens, it's going to be a coin flip type of fight. But the idea that Devin Haney is shot is crazy.
Yep.
Crazy. He is in his mid-20s and had one tough fight. We disagree on the chin thing. I think his chin is fine. I think he got clipped, 3 times by Ryan Garcia left hooks and stayed up on at least one of them. Guys do not get up in boxing from the Ryan Garcia left hook. He took them, didn't go down on some of them, and got up from the rest. That tells me you've got a chin. That certainly tells me you've got great heart. I'm a believer that this is going to be a redemption type of fight for Devin Haney. I'm not predicting a knockout here because Devin is not a huge puncher, and I think Jose Ramirez is still good enough to go the distance. But I think Devin wins this fight clean. I think afterwards on May 3rd, we're excited about that Haney versus Garcia fight because Devin is going to be back on top once again.
I hope you're right because I got one foot still on the Devin Haney train, and you knew that I had both hands and feet on the train when he was fighting. He was beating everyone. I said he had the best jab in boxing, and his resume is already starting to look like a Hall of Fame resume. All right. But
not there yet, but he's getting
but
there.
I mean, look at his fights.
I get it. Two division world champion,
after
undisputed. I get it.
Okay, so his resume is aging great. So look, he still has all that great stuff that he can bring to the table, but he still has to prove to me and to everyone else, all his other critics, that he can get out of a tough fight. He can actually compete in a physical fight, that he can take a punch and give a punch. And these are all things that we're questioning about Devin Haney. So that's it. Other than that, I hope he proves me and everyone else wrong. I hope he comes back and does exactly what you said. But this is a sport where no one forgets, man. And we have that memory of him consistently on his behind.
The questions, Sergio, about him are completely fair. Like, what impact is that fight going to have on him? They're completely fair because that was the worst beating that I've seen a guy take over a 12-round fight against a real power puncher in Ryan Garcia. That might be hyperbolic, but he took a pretty good beating in that fight. Like, what are the ripple effects of that? We haven't seen him back in the ring in over a year. All those questions are fair, but I'm in the camp that he's going to bounce back. I think he's going to look sharp. Yeah. I think he's going to look good at 147 because I think he's going to have more. The ability to fill out is going to help him because he's always been shrinking down to that weight. And you know this, Sergio. If you want to question the chin, some of the stuff that goes into having a bad chin is cutting weight too much. If you are cutting more than you should, it does affect your chin. There's a connectivity there in boxing.
No, yeah, and I totally agree. Whenever you carry more weight, you can take a better punch. Yes, but you're still not going to carry your punch. If he wasn't knocking guys out at 135,
he's not a knockout, but he's not. Like, I know he's kind of obsessed with it. He's not a knockout puncher. He's never going to be.
How are you going to get respect by the bigger fighters at 147?
I mean, you don't I'm not going to compare Devin Haney to Floyd Mayweather, but like, did Floyd get respect of the fighters at 147? He got the respect of guys at 135. Like, he was a great puncher at 135. But when he went up to 147, later 154, he was a boxer. That's what Devin Haney is going to be, a boxer in these big events.
Yeah, but Mayweather was a way sharper, more accurate, more consistent, hungrier, better.
All right, but you can make comparisons like, I mean, again, I'm not comparing the two, but Andre Ward at 168, right? Like, and 175.
Andre was a dog.
But he was a dog, and he could punch because he got Kovalev out of there in his last fight. But he was more boxer than puncher.
Yeah, see, that's another bad example because Andre can box your ear off on the outside, but if he was in there with a guy that was longer, stronger, he'll get on the inside and maul you. Bernard Hopkins he'll find a way to win. So on the inside or outside, plan A or plan B, Andre Ward would dog you. Devin Haney, when have you seen him get out of his element when he's not in control of that jab, turn into a dog? We haven't.
He hasn't had to, right? Like, and you brought up the resume. He wiped out George Kambosos twice in Australia. He wiped out Regis Prograis back when Regis was a scary guy. He beat Lomachenko. Like, he's beaten real guys. And whatever you want to say about that Lomachenko fight, at best, you can say it was a coin flip. You can say it should have been 115, 113 the other way. Don't say Lomachenko blew him out, because he didn't. Devin had a good game plan, and he won that fight. So I think that skeptics of Devin are going to be disappointed. It's like he's going to have a good night.
Well, whatever the skeptics are thinking, don't call him a shot fighter. That's a very harsh word.
Oscar knows that too. Oscar knows that too.
You don't call a fighter shot. You don't call a fighter a quitter, and you don't call a fighter a bum.
You can't call Devin a quitter. That's for sure.
No, that's what I'm saying. Those are the three. Those are the trifecta of what you don't call a fighter. You know. So yeah, shot is a strong word.
All right, go take care of your colon.
And those are three words I will call you: shot, quitter, bum.
I'm going to call you spastic colon.
I don't know what spastic means.